All right, so grade 12 pupils will be writing their preliminary exams in the next few weeks, and then will start their finals in early November. Umalusi, which is the council that sets and monitors standards for general education in South Africa, is concerned about the impact of COVID-19 and the associated lockdown, and what this will have on this year's National Senior Certificate exams credibility. Lengthy school shutdowns, the rushing of the syllabus, and the access pupils have to online learning have all raised questions around the credibility of this year's final exams. To make sure that quality education is upheld, Umalusi will be engaging with various monitoring bodies and is currently working to accommodate changes in the exam timetable. For more on the story and how this will all work, let's bring in Umalusi CEO, that's Dr. Mafu Rakometsi. Thanks very much for your time, Doc, and welcome to the AM Report. Let me start by getting a sense from you, at least, how you feel schools have fared since they've gradually reopened amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Have you been able to touch down or touch base with these schools to get a sense of how they're coping with these renewed pressures?
The schools have done very well. We have seen a lot of commitment from both the sides of the teachers and the side of the students. We have seen commitment that says every minute, every hour that they've had at their disposal, they've utilized adequately to catch up with the lost time because of the pandemic. So in that sense, we are happy that everybody seems to be working hard in preparation for the examinations that are coming.
You know, Doc, part of the concerns, if you like, that were raised as we went into lockdown and there was debate about how we should reopen is whether or not the strategy we've adopted might work to further exacerbate the inequalities in our education system. Reflect for me on some of your concerns specifically for public institutions where teachers and learners don't have access to infrastructure that will enable them to do this remote learning, so to speak, that has been so widely recommended during COVID-19.
The inequalities in education have always been there. They've been there before 1994. They've been there after 1994. They are still with us even today. They've not been brought about by COVID-19. So we don't see in the near future a situation where the playing field will be leveled. It will not be leveled anytime soon. So we have to live with the situation of inequalities and try to make up for the institutions that are struggling. Indeed, Umalusi, I must admit, is not a provider of education or a quality assurance body. We encourage the department to try and level the playing field. It is not something that can be attained overnight.
One of the instant concerns, of course, also has to do with the quality of education that learners are currently receiving and the quality that they're likely to receive for the rest of the year. Has that had any bearing, do you think, on some of the considerations you'll be making as you try and monitor whether or not we've at least managed to adhere to those norms and standards over the past few months?
Indeed, a number of areas are going to be approached differently when it comes to the quality assurance of assessment. For instance, when it comes to the monitoring of school-based assessment, we are not going to be going to schools physically. We're going to have virtual meetings where we're going to be looking at school-based assessment. This could be orals, this could be practical assessment tasks. They are going to be done virtually. It is only in exceptional circumstances where we'll go physically to institutions to check the veracity of what has been presented to us. Also in terms of the state of readiness, where we would go to the different provinces across the country. This time around, we're going to do virtual meetings, we're going to receive documents, we're going to do desktop evaluation in our offices. It will also be only in exceptional circumstances where we'll go to institutions where we want to verify the facts. The writing of the examinations is going to be done differently also because you have to observe physical distancing. That is very critical, and that is going to stretch the resources of the different assessment bodies because they'll have to get more facilities for students to write under the circumstances that allow for the COVID-19 protocols to be observed. That also goes to marking. marking is going to be a challenge in the sense that we are going to have combined examinations. The May-June examinations and the October-November examinations have been combined. That increases the number of learners, and that means also that the number of markers have to be increased. And with the increase in the number of markers, it means that consideration has to be taken of the space that the markers are going to be occupying. Physical distancing is also going to be observed. So there are a number of areas where we have to do things differently. Indeed, COVID-19 has been a game changer, and we are trying to meet our obligations of quality assurance in the midst of this pandemic.
Yeah. And, Doc, there are obvious blind spots to being able to just ensure quality assurance virtually. I mean, I can present to you a very different reality through a virtual engagement rather than when you're in the room, in the hall, or in the specific infrastructure, so to speak. How are you planning to safeguard against those blind spots, those very obvious inefficiencies, for lack of a better term?
The blind spots will be attended to. That is why I said we're going to do desktop, we're going to do virtual. But where we believe and we suspect that we may not be getting an authentic picture of what is being presented to us, that is when we are going to have to go physically to the institution, visit them and see for ourselves whether what is being presented to us is authentic or not. So those blind spots will be there, but we'll be very vigilant to check that whatever is presented to us is authentic.
Yeah, the term you're using in our engagement now is exceptional circumstances. Can you give me an idea of what an exceptional circumstance would be that would warrant a physical visitation?
An exceptional situation would be where we are presented with, say, a virtual picture of where the question papers are stored. And when we look at the presentation that has been made to us, it is unbelievable. It is not something that sounds, authentic. And then we'll say, this is exceptional. Let's go and see whether this is true or not. An exceptional situation would be where practical assessment tasks are presented to us and they don't look authentic. It looks like there's some chicanery in the presentation. That would be exceptional, and that will call for us to go and verify the situation ourselves.
Okay. The tendency is to focus on the nuts and bolts, right? The practicalities of what it takes to pull off a successful matric exam session. But when we do that, often we overlook the psychological impact that might be felt across the board, quite frankly, in these unprecedented times. How are you factoring in how that might affect things like performance, especially for matriculants who, on any other year really, are really just anxious about making it through this important year in their schooling careers?
The writing of the National Senior Certificate, popularly known as matric, always brings some anxiety in the minds of the candidates. It is going to be worse this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This makes the class of 2020 a unique cohort in that sense. We are concerned about how the disruption caused by COVID-19 is affecting the entire system, and we remain sensitive to the needs of the class of 2020 in this regard. I'm on record as saying there is no doubt that COVID-19 has proven to be a game changer in terms of how we conduct the examination. We are concerned about the needs of the learners. There has to be psychosocial support by the Department of Basic Education, the Independent Examinations Board, South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. All these bodies have to encourage the schools to have psychosocial support for the learners because we are facing an unprecedented situation in our country, and this is being experienced by the whole world.
All right, that's the time we have, at least for our conversation now. Thanks very much for weighing in. Really appreciate you coming onto the AM report. Dr. Mafu Rakometsi is the CEO of Umalusi. Thanks very much indeed for your time.